Hey, all, welcome to Oddly Successful, a podcast that celebrates people who follow their instincts, went against the grain, and found success outside of the traditional 9 to 5. As always, I'm your host, Alexander Lafredo Dietrich. And as always, before we begin, I'd like to remind you that you can find recordings of this podcast on your favorite channels, but also on YouTube and Instagram by following us at Oddly Successful. So in today's episode, I have the great pleasure of interviewing Aaron Spaulding, who was a corporal in the United States Marine Corps and was part of the Presidential Helicopter Squadron, which I'll let you explain more about what that's about.
Yeah, we'll get into that. I feel like it'll come up a few times.
Yeah. It's like, because you and I have known each other for so long, and then, when you came...
2012.
Yeah, 2012. So it's been... I can't believe I forgot the years. 12 years. 12 years. 12 years. But yeah, and now after, leaving the Marines, you're currently running maintenance in a 226 apartment, $53 million building.
Yeah.
Which is insane. That is an unfathomable amount of money. Unless you, who is ever listening, is probably like the top 0.001%, then, maybe you're struggling at that. But anyway, so you mentioned that your greatest success is being an HM1 ex-Marine, and then also, getting your degree, and then also, running this massive apartment complex and doing all the maintenance. But let's start with chapter one, the Marines.
Yeah.
What was your story before getting into the Marines, and then like getting to the Presidential Helicopter Squadron?
Yeah, I mean, baseball always played a huge part in my life.
Okay.
I started t-ball, played spring ball, fall ball, summer ball, huge on baseball. So my plan was always, go to college, play college ball, see where that brings me. But I didn't pay enough attention in high school. And I didn't have a good enough GPA to get into college.
Yeah.
So I ended up going to community college where I met you, John Tyler.
Yeah.
And then I bombed out of junior college to the tune of a 1.36 GPA my freshman year, and a letter from the state telling me to never apply through financial aid for them again.
Dang. That's impressive in its own right, man.
Yeah. So, I realized I wasn't mature enough for school.
Yeah.
I wasn't in the right mindset. I just wanted to drink, party, play Magic the Gathering,
and
have fun.
And like, how old were you back then?
19.
Yeah, 19. Because like a lot of people come out of high school and they jump right into college, but not everybody is ready to take that on. But
100%. I'm honestly super against letting kids. I mean, we're all kids at that point.
Yeah.
Go to college for the most part. That young. It's just a lot of us aren't, there yet mentally.
100%. Yeah. I mean, I feel very fortunate because I did community college, but like between community college, actually before community college, I was working at a gas station doing deli work, and then I moved to Virginia, had to wait a little bit, then went to community college, and I had to wait to get 4 year. Between that, I was like doing automotive work, I was doing a whole bunch of stuff, shipping and loading, and so by the time I was like in college, I was in my mid-20s. But anyway,
I think that was another thing that appealed to me a lot more than sitting in a classroom, was just working, doing things. And I was at Starbucks for 2 years and 9 months. Really enjoyed it. It definitely would never go back.
You had some crazy drinks that you would whip up now.
I had a secret menu that wasn't even on the secret menu. Man.
That's all right. The secret Spaulding menu.
Yeah, 100%. My whole family was military.
Yeah.
They were all Army, except for my grandfather, he was Navy. Mom, dad, big sister, my uncle, and it just keeps going back and back. And I was like, let's give that a try. Obviously something's not clicking in my life right now. I need to change it up. And what better way to do it than, join the Marine Corps.
Yeah.
Which admittedly wasn't my first choice. It was the Air Force, but
Okay.
They ended up, hook, line, and sinker, reeling me in.
Yeah.
Talk their good stuff about, me being the hardest out there, the best.
Man.
Definitely felt that way after boot camp, but that's kind of how my life led up to the Marine Corps. It was just I listened to myself.
Yeah.
I realized I wasn't going to get anywhere fast on the track that I was on. I wasn't going to be proud of the things that I was doing.
Yeah.
Where I was at, and I listened to that little voice that was in my stomach, my head, told me, hey, you need to do something else.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I like that's kind of like the whole point of a lot of the folks that we have on here is like, some people went to college or school, most people didn't, and I think what you mentioned, like, you have to really listen to yourself more so than I think the singular story that we're being told of like, hey, graduate high school, go to college, get the job, yeah. And we always say it, right? Like, it's a totally valid story. It doesn't work for everybody. And then if you're the type of person that doesn't work for, are you going to follow that path? So it sounded like you did. Yeah. You wound up in the Marine Corps, and what was that like? Before you got into helicopter squadron, like what were the steps that led you up there?
Man, so boot camp, which don't let anybody fool you. Boot camp is the easiest part of the Marine Corps.
Really?
100%. I mean, it's the most physically demanding.
Yeah.
But you get 3 meals.
Mm-hmm.
You get 8 hours of sleep a night. And, you're told where to be, what to do, how to do it. It's very structured.
Yeah.
You don't have that freedom to mess anything up.
Yeah.
Boot camp is the easiest. It is the most physically demanding, and it is exhausting.
Yeah.
But boot camp's the easiest part of the military, 100%.
Mm-hmm.
I'd venture to say that's any of the branches.
Yeah.
So I went through boot camp, 3 months, South Carolina, down in Parris Island.
Yeah.
It was awful, but I'd go back if someone offered me to go back.
Yeah.
I would. And then after that, we have a little something called MCT or ITB. So it depends on your MOS or your job.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Before you join, you sign a contract that gives you what job that you got selected for.
Gotcha.
I got military police, which is not an infantry role.
Okay.
So we go to something called MCT down in North Carolina called Marine Combat Training. Right?
Gotcha. Okay.
It's a month-long course, and they teach you a bunch of different like combat techniques and stuff like that. In terms of like how to clear buildings, how to survive in the forest, how to dig your own fighting positions, things of that nature. ITB is for the infantry guys. It's the same course, but it's 3 months long.
Gotcha. Okay.
Right? A lot of living in the woods.
Yeah.
No showering, really. You gotta take your hoe baths with baby wipes.
Look, man, I was at a festival, the Blue Ridge Mountain Festival, and I'm not going into those like massive every 1,000 people are sharing one shower stall. Like, dude, I'm not trying to catch any sort of fungus. Get me some baby wipes. Like, I'll suck it up for a little bit. But
feet, genitals, butthole and armpits. That's all you really got. That's all you need to focus on.
Yeah.
That was fun too. I remember less of that than I do boot camp.
Really? Okay.
It was because I slept maybe 4 or 5 hours a night.
Yeah.
Constantly hot, constantly cold, constantly wet.
Yeah.
And rain.
So that month was worse than the 3 months of boot camp. You said.
Yeah, 100%. And you get a little bit more freedoms there.
Yeah.
You still get to determine, how much you eat out of your MREs, things like that, how you operate. When you go to the restroom, because we weren't able to do that in boot camp either.
Yeah.
I remember.
They tell you when you get to go.
Oh yeah, 100%. I remember coming out of boot camp, I was at 2 pounds higher than the minimum threshold for my weight. And then when I left MCT, I was 2 pounds under the minimum threshold for my weight. Yeah. So after MCT, then you have your job school.
Okay.
Right. And that was in Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri.
Okay.
So when I got there, I was in a holding platoon because my class hadn't started yet. So for like the first 3 weeks, I was just, not doing much, but, eating and doing PT during the day and everything. And then, I got an MP school. And then about like second month into the 3-month course.
Of MP school?
Of MP school, yep.
Okay, yeah.
Second month into the 3-month course of MP school. That's a mouthful. A recruiter from HMX-1, the Marine Helicopter Squadron, a recruiter comes in and they interview everybody in the class who's interested in it.
Yeah.
And they pick people out who they think could be a good fit.
Yeah.
Out of my class, which I think had 33 people in it, it was 3 of us in that class that got picked. Yeah. 3 of us.
Okay.
And then I went about my way, and I really didn't find out I got picked until about a week before I was supposed to graduate.
Really?
Yeah. They don't give you your orders until, the very end.
The very last minute, yeah.
I had friends I've known since boot camp that were going off to like Iwakuni or
Iwakuni?
Yeah.
Where's that?
In Japan.
Oh my gosh, dude. Me being like a dude who's like super into
Yeah.
Japan. Like I just got back from Japan a couple months ago. Never heard of Iwakuni. Dang.
Pretty sure it's an airfield.
Yeah.
Iwakuni or what's the other one? There's another place in Japan.
Yeah.
We have a base.
Yeah. Is that Okinawa?
Okinawa, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep,
that one I know.
Yeah.
The redemption.
You're betting 500. Yeah, so half my friends, or like 8 of my friends, went over there, and then, a bunch of them went to California, some of them down to North Carolina, and we just spread out from there, man.
Yeah.
It was 3 people that got the orders to go to HMX, and we hopped on a plane a week later and got picked up in the airport.
Nice.
White panel van.
Oh man, so like there's no, I mean it's the Marines, so I doubt there's very much like pomp and circumstance and all that stuff. It's just like,
don't get me wrong, like the Marine Corps, we're very ceremonious.
Okay.
We have the best dress uniforms.
Y'all do look sharp.
They look pretty clean.
Yeah.
So everything's an occasion. If you graduate something, your family's gonna come and you're gonna get your like little certificate or diploma.
Yeah.
Promotions are a whole ceremony. There was a ceremony, but it wasn't. It wasn't like woo, So, cool. Graduated, good job. Do better when you get to the fleet, and have a good day.
Dang, man.
It's a machine though. Like once we leave, those same instructors we have maybe a week before they got to train a new class with 30 plus. So there isn't really enough time for the whole joyous occasion. It's just a ceremony, some dinner, and off you go.
Yeah. So all right. So you're in this van to get to the airport, and then the airport, you get to land.
Yeah.
Probably get picked up in another van at HMX. Where's this happen? Is this the North Carolina, the California? Was it a different one? Are you allowed to disclose?
What do you mean?
For HMX.
HMX is the Marine One, the President's Helicopter Squadron.
Right. So
that's HMX. That's up in Quantico.
Okay, Quantico. Okay. So
they have a website if you're ever curious.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So,
You
all right. Nice.
You just Google HMX1 and a whole bunch of information about it.
Okay. So
Yeah.
all right. So you make it up to Quantico, and then like what was the day-to-day like there? Like you've done your schooling, now you're on base, I guess, at Quantico.
More schooling, man.
Really?
So there's a check-in process for every duty station.
Okay.
So we show up. Usually it's like midnight.
Okay.
So we show up to the airport. We get in a van with the other Marine who is at the unit. He's coming to pick us up.
Yeah.
Brings us down there. He gets us to the barracks. We check in, get our rooms, sleep for 6 hours, wake up, put on our service uniform, which is like not the dress uniform, but it's like a it's like a suit.
Okay.
It's got a tie and and we go and check in to the various different places we need to check in, get all of our gear.
Mm-hmm.
We have one Marine that's like attached to us that's from the unit to kind of show us around.
Yeah.
So we that's it, man. sleep for 6 hours, wake up, go check in everywhere. You got like a week to fully check in.
Yeah.
And then you start your job.
Yeah.
And training.
And so was your entire job like just guarding the president the whole time? Or
No. I actually, I never had any, it was more presidential assets.
Okay.
The president, you know? I mean, I was allowed to be within the president with a loaded weapon,
Yeah.
but I mean, I was very rarely even within 5 feet of the man.
Yeah.
You know, it was mainly his assets, you know, his helicopters, you know, we had emergency response guides and procedures we had to follow, things like that. But I mean, that's all way down the line, you know, because we have to still get our security clearance first.
Okay.
So we all have like a baseline secret security clearance. And then, you know, depending on your job or where you at, you have to get an upgraded security clearance, which has to get approved by these different agencies, you know? So, I mean, I got there, we do our training for like our day to day. While we're on shift, we train on day shift, we train on night shift, we train on all the shifts and all the different posts that we can stand, because some of the posts we can't because we don't have our security clearance. So, and then you just rinse, wash, and repeat for anywhere between 6 months to a year and a half till you get your security clearance and you can do the actual cool stuff, man.
Dang, man, it sounds like college with push-ups.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much, man. It's a lot. It's very cerebral, you know, because we go over, you know, different security philosophies and, you know,
philosophies.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you know,
what do you mean by that?
Like vectors of coverage and things like that. You know, nothing too crazy, but you know, positioning of cameras, what different types of scans there are when you're at a post and you're looking for things. We have our post orders, our general orders. We have our standard operating procedure, which we have to know front and back.
How big is that? Like,
it depends. I mean, our general orders are. Oh God. I don't even remember how many general orders there are. I don't know. It's not a lot.
Yeah.
The SOP varies depending. The standard operating procedure varies depending on which post you're at.
Gotcha.
You know. So there's a lot of stuff you got to learn.
Yeah.
Study, understand. You know. But yeah, college push-ups, pretty much.
College push-ups, all right.
And lots of running.
How many miles per week were you thinking?
Oh man, depends. So the Marine Corps has 2 different fitness tests.
Okay.
Right? We have our PFT,
right,
which is like our summer test where you run 3 miles, you do pull-ups, and you do crunches. Which I think now you can do push-ups instead of pull-ups if you elect to, and you can also do the ab plank instead if you want to. Okay. But so there's a lot more long distance running or a lot of interval running. Okay. You know, so you'll jog for a little, like you'll jog down, sprint up, you know, a lot of interval running, a lot of calisthenics, things like that. And then you have your combat fitness test, which is more short burst. Okay. Right. It's very much, you know, we want you to get from point A to point B as quick as possible, as hard as possible, as fast as possible. Yeah. And it's a whole different kind of fitness in itself. You're focusing more explosively when you're training for that, you know. That consists of a half-mile sprint.
Half-mile sprint?
Yes. With your boots and your cami bottoms on.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I consider myself to be in pretty decent shape, but like, I actually had them on for the last episode of the November project. They have us do sprints on like a parking deck, where it's just like you literally just go up the length of one flight.
But you're all that with a 50-pound backpack on, right?
It's sometimes 60. But no, I'm like, even without it and just going up once, man, I do that twice. I'm like, I'm gonna puke, and that's like,
it's tough, man.
Not even a quarter mile.
Yeah, it's tough. So it's half-mile run, and it's not in your shoes and shorts. You know, you're wearing your day-to-day, your boots. Yeah. You're wearing, granted, there are lighter boots you can buy. Okay. But they're still fucking boots. Yeah. You know?
You don't see Usain Bolt like running from the Olympics or anything. Although that would be funny. They should do that in the Olympics, just like straight, just put boots on all the sprinters.
He has some pretty big feet too, I think. So just imagine when like size 15 pontoon boats.
Dude, I'd be like tripping over my toes and pulling my ankles, like all that stuff, man. No way.
Oh, that's wild, man. And then after that, you have ammo can lifts, right? Which you have,
Those are like 40 pounds, right?
yeah, it's like 35 or 40 pounds, and you start at your chest, fully lock out, come back down. You got to get like 100 of them in 2 minutes or something like that.
Ugh.
Then, so the first one is called movement to contact. That's what the sprint is. So
Okay.
it's supposed to simulate, hey, there's gunfire that way. We need to go that way.
Yeah.
And then the last course of action for the combat fitness test is the movement under fire,
Okay.
which is essentially, I guess, an obstacle course. I don't know how long it was. I was never like a administrator for these tests.
Yeah.
I just had no interest in it.
Yeah.
But essentially, you start off. This time you have, same thing, pants, boots, but you have a partner.
Okay.
And just hope you're on the good side of whoever's administering the test, because they select your partner. I was paired once with somebody who was like 80 pounds heavier than I am. That we're going to know why that's important in a minute. So essentially, you start off, you sprint to a cone, and you J-hook.
Okay.
So you get to the cone, you spin around, and then you drop down, and then you low crawl to another cone, and then you bear crawl to the next cone, and then you get up and you zigzag, movement under fire, right?
Yeah.
And then you get to the end where you have a casualty. They're your partner, right?
Okay.
And then they're dead weight. So the first thing is what's called the buddy drag, where you go up underneath them, put your arms under their armpits, grab their arms, and you drag them backwards.
Okay.
You go around the cones that you just drove by until you get to one cone, the second to last cone. You stop them, and then you got to pick them up and fireman carry them all the way back down to the beginning. And that's not it.
How do you pick up someone in a fireman? Like the buddy carry makes sense. You scoop them up there, you got them, right? But then like just dead weight. Like how do you get them?
Adrenaline's a hell of a drug.
Okay. All right.
See, these fitness tests they play into your promotion.
Yeah.
It's, how you do, how you're perceived.
Yeah.
The assignments that you get, things like that.
Yeah.
So like you got to perform well.
Yeah.
So you figure out a way to do it.
Yeah.
But once you drop them off at the very end, you turn around back to your starting position. You pick up 2 30-pound ammo cans.
Okay.
And then you sprint all the way back to the very end where you picked up your buddy. And then you grab a grenade, a dummy grenade, and you throw it. I think it's like 10 yards away into this little like 3-yard by 3-yard box.
Okay.
And you got to land in the box. If you land in the box, they deduct 5 seconds from your score.
Nice.
Which is great. Lower score is good. If you don't, it's either you don't get any deduction or you get like fined more points. They add seconds. After you throw it, you do 3 push-ups, and then you stand up, grab the ammo cans, and sprint the whole way back.
That sounds awful.
Yeah, it sucked.
That's awful, man.
Yeah.
Dude.
But it was quick.
Yeah.
I much preferred the CFT over the PFT because the CFT was fast.
Yeah.
30 minutes in total,
and then
you're done.
Yeah.
While with the PFT, you have some people who are taking, 28 minutes just around 3 miles.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, it's good time for normal people whose life doesn't depend on doing this stuff.
Yeah.
But, it's 40 seconds from failing in the Marine Corps.
Yeah.
Dang.
So, it's like...
Or maybe it's failing now, actually. I think it's 27 or 40.
So it's a 9-minute mile for 3 miles.
Yeah.
Not my cup of tea.
How did we get on this tangent today?
I don't know. I was just asking, how did you get from join the Marine Corps to stand next to the president in a picture?
Yeah. How did we get on fitness tests?
Oh man,
I don't know. All right, it is what it is.
Let us know in the comments or something. Let us know in the review.
Yeah, please. Oh man.
Okay, so you did your test. You got your clearance.
Yeah.
Now you're doing the cool stuff, right?
100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sweet. And so what do you think was the coolest part about just being in the Marines and doing the Presidential Guard? Was it guarding the president, or was there some other proximal things? Just actually guarding the president was sweet, but there's some other really wicked stuff besides that.
The travel was pretty great.
Yeah.
Now, admittedly, half the time when we went to like the different countries,
Yeah.
I didn't really get out to do much there because I was tired. I was on night shift, you know. All 4 years was night shift pretty much. I mean, but when I did, it was amazing. You know, like, the travel was great. I mean, I just think I just took so much pride in doing what I was doing that the rest of it didn't really matter. You know, it was awesome. You know, I didn't deploy in a traditional sense. You know, I didn't go to Iraq or Afghanistan or anything like that. You know, I'm very open about that. But the stuff that I did do was really cool.
If you're allowed to say it,
most definitely. First one was Munich, Germany.
Okay.
That was pretty cool.
Nice, yeah.
And then we went to Kenya.
Okay.
I was in Kenya. And then we went to Cuba.
Okay.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Dang, man.
First presidential mission there since President Coolidge, I think it was.
Really?
Yeah.
Dang, it was at Obama?
Obama.
Was it Trump?
Yeah, it was Obama. Went to Turkey, Israel, Hanoi, Vietnam. It's always one I leave off. It's always one.
Argentina.
No, I never went. I had a bunch of buddies who went, though.
I was just going from the top of the list. What comes after Argentina? What comes before Argentina?
Yeah, right.
Oh, no.
Argentina's pretty far back in the A's.
Yeah.
Let's see. Germany, Kenya, Cuba, Turkey, Vietnam, Israel. There's one other one.
You didn't mention Israel before.
Oh, yeah, Israel.
There you go, Israel.
There we go. Tel Aviv.
Tel Aviv, okay.
Yep.
So, you know, like, in how many of those would you say you got to, like, go out, or did you find the energy to go out?
I had the half of them.
Half of them?
About,
okay.
Yeah. So
would you say, so, like, you know, I've done limited travel, but, you know, a lot of times we think of, like, different parts of the world and these different cultures, and, like, we think about how different people are. What were just, like, I'll say, some of the biggest culture shocks that you ran into? And then on the flip side, what are some of the things that you think, I don't know, unified all those people together?
Man, the biggest culture shocks, I mean, every country is going to have some sort of culture shock, right? You know, people just live differently than what they do here. You know, I mean, everything from, you know, nothing being open in Germany on Sundays to, you know, getting lost in the ghettos in Hanoi. You know, like, it was, everything was different, you know. There were some places, you know, like Israel, when we went, it was very westernized. You know, I mean, obviously Munich was too. You know, but there are always just these little nuances in the places. Like Israel, for instance, you know, they had places where you could be traditionally separated at, like, beaches, men and women. You know, just so there were definitely places where that, I think, was kind of a cool thing. There was that there are places where if you aren't very traditional, you know, you guys can do your things together, or if you are, you know, there's a place where you guys can be traditional and still enjoy the same things. You know, I think that's a huge thing that I'm not trying to bash America, but you know, that's one thing that we're lacking in. It's just that understanding that, you know, us as a whole, you know, there's a lot of division. Now, I'm not going to get into whether that's coordinated or anything like that. I mean, there is.
Well, I mean, like, we even divide politically our party lines between, like, how, quote unquote, conservative, which tends to have a traditional connotation to it, versus how liberal, which has a connotation towards progressive. And there is this, you know, this polarization, which it's, you know, I don't think it's an unpopular opinion. I think most people would agree with this, but those two ideals are pitted against one another versus, like, trying to live.
100%. Yeah, there's no doubt about it. You know, I mean, I met people who, you know, just stopped talking to someone else because they didn't agree with their political decisions. And that's what I'm talking about. There's a lack of understanding between people nowadays. It seems like you can't have a different opinion than somebody. You know, I mean, obviously there's exceptions to that, you know. But it's crazy because you got to be very careful as to like what you say around some people. You know,
how's that in like the Marines? Like, because I figure like you're all under one organization. Was that
we all bleed green, dude?
Oh yeah.
Black, white, or purple, it doesn't matter. You know, like I've heard some of the most outrageous stuff coming out of, you know, dude's mouth talking about somebody in a different race to his face, and the person who those insults were slung at just laughed and slung out other insults. Like there's not a lot of division there. At the end of the day, you know, you're obviously not going to like everybody that you're with. You know, but there's no doubt in my mind that 90% of those people would still jump in front of a bullet for me. Even if I hated them.
Why?
You know?
Why do you think that is? Like, why do you think that's the case in the Marine Corps versus like civilian life?
We have a greater purpose. You know, don't get it twisted. You know, a lot of the guys that I've spoken to who have deployed, who have gone to Iraq and Afghanistan, I used to do honor flights when I was in, where we'd fly in World War II, Korea and Vietnam vets to DC, and we show them around their memorials.
Dang.
You know, I've spoken to a lot of them, and a lot of them kind of rang true to the same thing when I asked them the question, "How did you get through it?" You know, a lot of them told me that I wasn't fighting for the apple pie back home, or I wasn't fighting for America. I was fighting for that brother next to me who's going through the same thing I am. We're trying to get out of this, you know, and I think even if you don't deploy, you know, there's still that sense of camaraderie, that sense of a greater purpose.
Well, it's, you know, it seems like that purpose is also very proximal. I mean, like physically proximal to the individual. And, you know, like I think people in the United States, without being nationalistic, can still be, you know, have these ideas of like, well, how do you build a better country and a better world, right? I think I would argue pretty much everybody in the world has that, unless, you know, they're a total psychopath. And I don't mean that, and like I'm not saying that facetiously. I mean, like, unless there's literally something ill with the person.
Everybody wants to live in a better place,
right?
You know, like we just have people just have such differing opinions about how to get there. Well, that's why we have different political parties. You know,
and I think we're so far removed from one. Well, what does a better place look like from person to person? Again, I think that can get divvied up among political parties, but too, like literally, you know, if you're an individual saying, well, I, you know, want to end world hunger, whatever that is, you may be so far away from one, being able to accomplish that feat, but then two, being next to the people whom that would actually affect. And so, you know, getting back to, you know, what some of those vets mentioned, they're not fighting for the apple pie back home. They're fighting for the person next to them who has been through the same stuff, who's currently going through the same thing as they are.
100%.
It's like you can see that mission, right? That person is your mission. They are your purpose.
Here's my thing, right? Is there are a lot of similarities. One of the things that people love to throw around is, you don't know what I've been, right? And while that may be true, everybody has their different struggles, their different things. Take a second and listen to another person's story, right? Like, humans have gone through very similar struggles that another person has for the longest time. You know, like you and me, we aren't the same person. We haven't had all the same life experiences, but, you know, I can guarantee you, I mean, I know for a fact that you and I have had some similar struggles that we've leaned on each other on, you know, and it's very important that we as humans, for our growth and for the survival of our country, not to get too nationalistic, but we just need to sit back and listen to other people and not just immediately disregard them because we think our problems are so special. You know, they're not. Like, I've been jobless before for an extended period of time. I know plenty of other people have. Our financial situations may have been different, but I know what politics.
Yeah.
You know, like
100%. Yeah.
You know, things like that. Like 9 times out of 10, your problems are not special. You know?
Yeah.
They aren't.
Yeah.
You know, and that's a very harsh way of saying it, but it's factual.
Yeah.
You know, there are how many people in the world? 7, 8 billion. You know, like, you really think you're the only person that's gone through this, man?
Yeah.
You know?
But that's liberating too, right? Like if you think about it, that's actually really liberating when you're like, man, you know, my problem isn't that special. Well, what does that infer? That means like, well, that means I can seek out other people who have had that problem.
100%. And the huge thing that gets in the way of that is pride, you know? Like, a lot of these people might not think that they're special, but they might, you know, not want to reach out because they're like, you know, I can get through this myself. Or they might just be in a really bad place because of it.
Yeah.
You know, but like, take a second and listen. Like, you got 2 ears and 1 mouth. There's a reason you have 2.
Yeah.
2 ears, you know, like, listen a little bit more, talk a little bit less, you know, and I think that's one of the reasons why, you know, I was so successful was because I listened.
Yeah.
You know, I understood things. I took the time to listen to what other people said and what other people told me, and I processed it. I never once thought that I was unique. Yeah. Humans aren't unique.
Well, I mean, like that's kind of the. I mean, and feel free to correct me, but that sounds like that's like the MO of any branch of the military. Is one, you're not unique because like what do they do the first thing you get into boot camp, right? They shave your head, they give you the same clothes, they give you the same shit, right? And then second is when it comes to listening. I mean, again, I don't know boot camp because I've never been to boot camp. And I don't want to go through boot camp, although I'm actually curious. But anyway, that's besides the point. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. But like, you know, that first portion of boot camp, they say they break you down so they can build you up.
The first month.
Yeah, the first month is like, and that first month, right? From my understanding, isn't necessarily focused on the drill. It's the mental get your face, scream, shout. So that way you're at the point where it's like, all right, I'm letting go of all of my shit. I'm closing my mouth. So that way I can learn and listen. And then whenever we're doing our marches or formations or whatever that is, like I'm in lockstep with everybody else because I'm listening. I'm attentive to the surroundings.
100%. That's exactly what they do, man. You nailed it right on the head, you know, mouth shut, ears open.
Yeah.
That's just how it is. You're right, they shave your head. They give you the same bags to carry the same material around in. They give you the same shoes, same haircuts. And, you know, that first month is just about taking away that individuality and creating that unity. Yeah. You know, and there is a lot of drill in that first month. A lot of drill and ceremony, a lot of learning how to do it, because that's a very important to creating that one unified group. Yeah. You know?
It's almost like the drill and ceremony is like, you know, in martial arts, right? They have the katas, right? Stuff like that. And but why are you doing those movements? Well, it's because somebody tries to like hit you over the head. That becomes your reaction. You learn these principles that you can then apply to.
I mean, there's definitely some of that in there with the drill and ceremony and what we're doing with the rifles and everything like that. Honestly, though, it just looks cool as shit.
Dude, it does. It does. Look, I'm going to take real quick. If you have a friend who's about to graduate from boot camp, because I went to some friends' graduations, and they walk out on the parade grounds, and they all like snap at the same times and shout at the same time. Like, there's no speaker, and it deafens you in the stadium. You're like,
yeah. It's a sight to behold.
Yeah. Well, the other thing, too, is like, imagine... You know, they use that stuff out online. Imagine what like an enemy's looking at this like, dude, and those are the people fresh out. Like, I don't know about that. Like, I ain't picking a fight with that dude.
I find myself often, you know, going through YouTube and just being like Marine Corps drill and ceremony, like boot camp cadences, you know. It's tough being out.
So you know, learning. I guess, you know, my question I have as far as what a civilian could learn from the military, you know, without signing years of their life away. But like, what is something that maybe civilians could do to, I don't know, be able to unite under one mission, much like military service does?
That's a loaded question right there.
Yeah.
So first of all, without someone leading, it is insanely difficult to unite a large group of people, right?
Yeah.
Without some ideology or philosophy guiding you, or a person guiding you, it is insanely difficult to unite a group, right? There always has to be that facet.
Yeah.
You know, the big thing about it and being united is having that common goal and having an understanding for what other people have gone through that's similar to you. You know, I mean, that's what creates the bonds right there. You know, in my life, you know, I don't talk to many people from the Marine Corps. 2 people from the Marine Corps when I was in. I can guarantee you right now I could call anyone else that I still have the number of that I served with, and if I told them I needed them in Richmond, they'd be here. Yeah. You know, I haven't talked to them 4 years, 5 years, you know, like,
but you all went through a similar stuff together.
Yeah,
you know?
100%. It's, I mean, that phrase,
embrace the suck.
Yeah, embrace the suck is a huge thing, man, because 9 times out of 10, you're going to come out the other. Yeah. Better than what you were. And then that one time that you don't, you're going to know how to be better the next time you go through it. You know, like, it's just, that's how it is.
No matter what, you're becoming a better person, even if you're not in a better situation.
Yeah, 100%. And the big thing for uniting a group of people is being with people who share the same ideas and have been through similar things in you. You know, and I'm not saying those are the only people that you should surround yourself with, because that just becomes bad in and of itself. People need to diversify, but if you're trying to unite a large group of people, you have to have a common understanding of what each other has gone through and what you're trying to accomplish, and everyone has to be on that same page.
Like, you know, I think the United States runs into a very unique problem. I mean, geographically, we're
huge.
We're massive, right? we're beat by Russia, China, and I think we're number 3 geographically. Don't quote me on that. I went to art school, not fancy geography school. So, but I'm going to say number 3. But, you know, even countries like, well, we'll take Russia. I mean, most of the population is concentrated more towards the European side. So realistically speaking, like, geographically, it's not really all that diverse from what I know about Russia. And again, if you're Russian, please
correct them.
Please correct me, right? I'm making assumptions, but they're educated guesses. I'm open for you to tell me that I'm wrong. And I don't know enough about China to make an educated guess there, but I'm sure much of the population, right, is going to be situated on the single coast that they have. Whereas the United States has this unique problem, geographically speaking, is well, we have 2 coasts, but 3, our Midwest isn't all that populated, but there's still a decent, like, we have a lot of major cities in the Midwest. And so, Chicago, Milwaukee, Kansas City, like Cleveland, And so, to me, what that shows is, all right, well, now you have such a wide geographical span, and with that, everybody's going to have unique needs based on that geography. And so, you know, it's going to be, I would say, a little harder to unite a country like that versus, we'll say, something smaller than,
1,000%.
you know, a smaller westernized country. But again, I don't live in a smaller westernized country, so correct me.
Let's put it like this, right? People in Europe, a lot of them, they think a 2-hour drive is a long time.
Yeah.
I could drive 2 hours and not even be halfway through a state.
Yep.
I could drive 2 days and not be through a state, depending on which way I'm driving.
Yeah.
You know, like, it's a huge difference in terms of the size and the population, like you said.
Yeah.
It's highly concentrated into different parts of the country, which is crazy. Like, and it's hard to, it's definitely extremely hard to unite that large group of people when it's so spread out.
Yeah.
And if we're speaking realistically, it's never going to happen. You know? And that's where, you know, the listening part comes into play that I spoke about earlier.
Yeah.
And understanding, you know, not everybody's going to have the same opinions. politically, sociologically, economically, you know, no one's going to have the same opinions on things. They just aren't.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you and I differ in plenty of our opinions, but not once have you said something I didn't agree with and I got heated or mad.
Yeah.
Same with you.
Yeah.
You know, like, we need more understanding, you know, and that's the thing. You know, I've had traditional Japanese men and women in my branch in the military that I served with, or Chinese or Hispanic people, you know, like it's just different cultures.
Yeah.
But we all understood that, hey, we're all here.
Yeah. We're
all occupying the space. We need to get along.
Yeah. Got a common mission.
Yeah, 100%. And unifying as many people as we have in this state that's spread so far across, it's never gonna happen.
Yeah.
But people need to open up their ears and listen and understand and realize that their opinion's not the only one that matters.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, you know, transitioning over into, like, you know, now that you're in the civilian world and, you know, you manage people and how have some of these lessons that you learned in the Marines, you know, and especially being a leader, right? Now you know, maybe you're the one doing a lot of talking versus listening. How does that apply to some of the people that are under your tutelage, if you will?
Well, one thing I learned while I was in the military when it came to leadership was everybody needs to be led differently. And it's a very unique thing in the Marine Corps, right?
Yeah.
Like, the Marine Corps is very hard-nosed, especially with your enlisted leaders, you know. Very hard-nosed, do what I say when I want to do it. Sure, that has a place, you know. But everybody needs to be taught differently. Everybody needs to be led differently. Before anything, when I was a leader in the Marine Corps, I was a Marine, right? And my job as a Marine is to accomplish the mission at hand. My job as a leader is to make sure that mission gets accomplished. And knowing those two sides of the coin, going into it as a leader, I was like, how can I most effectively do this?
Yeah.
And that was realizing that I needed to be malleable as a leader and understand that one person might respond to me hazing them and another person won't.
Yeah.
So I need to treat them differently.
Yeah.
No, of course, you know, if someone needed to get slayed, they're going to get slayed. Physical fitness, not murder. If someone needs...
based on some of the stuff you've been telling me, man, like a lot of that physical fitness sounds pretty close to murder, man.
I mean, but like, if it needs to happen, it needs to happen. But it's your first instinct should very rarely be your first resort, if that makes sense.
Expand on that, because, like, you know, you hear the saying, and I've heard this from someone in the military, right? We don't rise to our expectations, we fall to the level of our training, something like that. Right?
We don't rise to expectations, we fall to the level of our training. 100%. It's very much in line with being prepared to fail prepares you for failure. Which I don't always agree with that.
Yeah.
Let's go with your first question.
So, you know, like, but again, like, your level of training to me is like, that's what's the first thing I'm going to do? Like, what am I trained to do?
Well, I'm not speaking on a tactical level here. When I say your first instinct shouldn't be the first thing that you do.
Gotcha. Okay.
I'm not thinking about it on a tactical level. While it might be the case sometimes, discretion is a thing. I'm talking about when it comes to people.
Gotcha.
When it comes to leadership in general.
Gotcha.
Right? There are some times with leadership, especially when it comes to executing a mission, like, say we have intelligence that there are some enemy gunmen in a building, right? My leadership with how to go about that is the first thing I go to. My training on how to go about that is where I go to as a leader. Okay. First person in the door does this, second person does this, the other two people are going to be covering these vectors in the hallway. Like that's that, right? Yeah. That's not leading people, that's leading a mission. Yeah. Right? There's a difference. So when it comes to leading people, your first instinct should very rarely be what you do first. Yeah. Right? If someone pisses you off, like, my first instinct is to start throwing shit and yelling at them,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Not everybody's going to respond to that.
Yeah.
You know, not everybody's going to like that. Probably piss a lot more people off than people respond to it, you know? I mean, that's me speaking in a little bit of hyperbole, but
yeah.
You know, you should always take you should always take a step back and think, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, why is this happening?
Mm-hmm.
How does this person respond to criticism? You know, and how is this going to help him grow? Like, some people, when they receive criticism, they need to be positive sandwiched. You know, you need to tell them a good thing, a bad thing, and then a great thing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You can't just, some people, they don't want to hear all that fluff. They just want to be like, what did I do wrong? How do I fix it?
Yeah.
Right? Everybody's different.
Yeah.
You know, like, I'd much rather get, like, I respond better. Like, emotionally, I respond better to somebody sitting me down and being like, hey, you know, like, you need to fix this, you know, like, the problem's more likely to get resolved if someone says, hey, you're a fucking scumbag, fix that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, it's much more likely to be resolved in that manner.
Well, it's redefining listening, right? Yeah. Like, it's not you as a leader are, it may not even be the words that someone's telling you, but you're listening to everything that they do, noticing every way that they respond, right? It's more than the words that's coming out of their mouths. It's just who this person is.
And honestly, some people don't want to get better than what they already are. And that's another thing that you need to understand too. You know, especially when you're not, you know, a cop, a firefighter, medical, in the military, like, your life doesn't depend on you getting better all the time. Yeah. You know, out here in the civilian world, if I have a technician where I work who is cool with just being a technician and doesn't want to grow or learn the computer stuff, that's fine. You know, everybody has their place. You need to understand that you can't show them how to do everything because they don't want to know how to do it.
Yeah.
You know, like, and that's another huge emphasis for people who want to grow and get better. They think that everybody else wants to too, and that's just not the case.
Yeah.
You know, some people are perfectly happy being, you know, mid-level or low level and just riding their time out, and that's okay.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, how many people working in corporate that I've noticed where it's like people don't want to move into people leadership positions, which are generally how you advance higher within a company, because they're like, man, I just want to keep being the hands-on builder of cool stuff. Yeah. You know?
And I will say though, not to cut you off, I'm sorry. I will say though,
how dare you?
If there is an issue, and you want it changed, but nothing is changing, stop complaining if you aren't going to be that person that makes that change. Yeah. You know, there's a caveat to that. If you don't want to move up the ranks, you know, be senior leadership, like, cool, don't. But if you can't elicit a change, you can't elicit a change being at the very bottom. You can't, you know, it's just, that's how corporate is set up. Yeah. You know, I mean, obviously if there's something illegal going on, you can, but but like, you know, if you want to see, you know, the calling in or calling out time changed in the policies and procedures from 2 hours before shift to 1. Yeah. You know, like, you're not going to be able to change that as a, you know, base level. Yeah. You know, you just aren't, you can't complain about it. Yeah. Because you aren't putting yourself up and setting yourself up in a position to change it. Well, you know,
I read, and it was in this book, like Stoic Meditations. And one of the things that they had mentioned is like, if you see somebody getting invited to like a bunch of parties or something like that, it's like, don't be jealous of them because they paid the price of, you know, maybe talking to people that they didn't really like, or like having to maintain those friendships or maintain those relationships. And the reward from that is that, all right, well, now they're going to these parties versus somebody who is not going to these parties has decided, well, I don't want to do all these things. So the reward you're getting is not having to do those things, but the price that you paid is not getting invited to the party, right? Yeah. And so it's like a very similar concept. What I'm hearing is like, all right, well, how much is it worth to you to be able to make those changes? If it's not worth it to you, then like admit that's the price that you're not willing to pay, 100%. Or be willing to pay that price in order to get that.
1,000%, man. Life is all about sacrifices that you make. Yeah. You know, I mean, you look at these guys who are in the NFL, for instance. Yeah. You know, like, they've spent their whole lives just focusing on their craft and honing it. And their price for that was, or is currently, sacrificing time with their families and their children. Like there are sacrifices to everything that you do, especially if you want to grow as a person and get better. Like just sitting here in one spot and just coasting, like nothing's going to change if you want it to change, if you're just going to sit there.
Well, I mean, and to bring this full circle, right? Like earlier on, you had made the decision, like, all right, I'm going to sacrifice the security of trying to walk the path that everybody says I should be walking to venture out and discover something that I think is going to be a better fit for me. You're now reaping the rewards of that. 100%. Now, you could have paid the price of maintaining security, right? Of like, well, I'm just going to keep doing the thing that people should be telling me to do, even though I don't really, it's not going to make me happy, right? And unfortunately, again, for those who may find themselves being drawn to the non-conventional story, I think this is a price that many folks, if they want the reward of finding purpose and happiness, or you're going to kind of have to accept. You're going to have to pay the price of like, well, I have to break off and pay the price of going into the unknown for a bit.
Yeah, 100%, man. And that's what human nature, in my opinion, should be about. Is discovering what you're passionate about, what you love doing. Like, right. So right now, I'm a maintenance supervisor for the apartment community, and I've been with this company for the last 5 years.
Yeah.
Right. Actually, it'll be 5 years. Yeah, in about a month.
I thought you were going to be like in 12 minutes. You're looking at your watch. I'm like, dang, dude, well, happy anniversary.
5 years in about a month, right?
Yeah.
I love this company. It's a great company. But more so than that, I love the job that I do.
Yeah.
Right. And I never once expected, before I got this job in October of 2019.
Yeah.
I had never held a tool in my life.
Yeah.
Right. I had never fixed something. I didn't know what an adjustable wrench was compared to a pair of channel locks. Like I just didn't know.
Yeah.
And started off as a groundskeeper, cutting grass and trimming bushes and picking up people's trash off their patios that wasn't supposed to be there. And in the span of 3.5 years, I got promoted 5 times and was a maintenance supervisor.
Yeah.
Because I found something I enjoyed and I knew I wanted to get good at it.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of hours put in. I had weeks where I worked 22 hours of overtime, it happens. But I really enjoyed what I did. I love what I do. And it's all because I decided to take a job that I didn't know if I liked or not.
Yeah. You paid the price of uncertainty.
100%.
Yeah.
I could have easily gone back and done something I knew I was good at and call it a day, but I wouldn't be nearly as happy as I am right now.
Well, on that note, I know we're approaching the hour. For anybody listening, a piece of advice that you would give them, to be able to take on that uncertainty, what's something you would say?
Oh, man. It's okay to be afraid. Fear is a normal thing.
Yeah.
Not being afraid of anything doesn't make you brave. Getting over
that.
What's that?
I said true that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, you kind of need to be afraid of something in order to be brave.
100%. But getting over that fear and challenging yourself and, trying to figure out not necessarily what you're good or what you're bad at, because that can always be fixed. You can always get better at something. But figuring out what you enjoy, if you've never sculpted with clay before, and you want to get into it, do it.
Yeah.
If you want to start going to the gym, I can guarantee you it is not as scary as you think it is.
It's so great that we literally had that conversation last episode. Like, hey, if you're not sure if you should be going to the gym, like, dude, most people are really cool with you going to the gym if you're just starting out. Yeah.
And a lot of the people there are like, they'll help you. Like, just ask them. All these crazy inflated social media videos of people making fun of other people, like that's not real life. Like that. It might happen, but it's not as bad as people think.
Yeah.
But that would be my big advice: is don't be afraid to try.
Yeah.
that's what I did my whole life. Everything that I've wanted to accomplish, I've accomplished because I've tried it.
Yeah.
You know, like, there are things that I failed at. Like when I got out of the military, I wanted to train up and go back to college and play baseball as a 26-year-old, you know, at a collegiate level. But, you know, I failed. And that's okay too. I learned a lot.
You have like a baseball, community that you help build out of that.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. But, you know, on that same note, like good things come out of your failures.
Mm-hmm.
But don't take failures to heart because, you know, you can always learn something from them.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm going to start going on a tangent again, but
Dude, you're good.
I guess to summarize it, don't be afraid of don't be afraid of the failure of stepping into the uncertain or to the unknown. I feel like that's what holds a lot of people back.
Yeah.
That's what I hear a lot of people say is like, what if it doesn't work? And I know it's a very cliched thing to say, but what if it does?
Yeah.
You know, like I'd never be in the position I was at right now if it didn't.
Yeah.
I guess the last thing is don't be too prideful as to not rely on somebody that cares for you.
Yeah.
You know, people that you love, you know, people that have been there with you, like don't be afraid to ask them for help.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be afraid to reach out to them and tell them, hey, I need your help with something.
This guy does it for me all the time.
Same for him, dude. I can't imagine. I couldn't imagine where I'd be right now if I love you too, buddy. I couldn't imagine where I'd be right now if he didn't, if he wasn't there to pick up my calls at crazy hours of the night.
Likewise, man. Let me tell you, we, again, 12 years, almost 13 years, we have lived in different states for, well, I guess now not so much, but for about half of our relationship. And he's one of the very few people that would make an effort to call. So, you know, good relationships worth holding on to.
100%.
Yeah, buddy.
100%. Yeah.
I appreciate you, man.
Of course,
thanks for sharing the wisdom.
Yeah, thank you for having me out. And I have a feeling that the more people you get on here, the more streamlined, I guess, the advice is going to be. I feel like it's all going to line up in certain aspects.
You know, what's funny, like this is episode 5, I think.
Yeah.
And then it's going to tag episode 6. Like, Dave, you don't even know your own show. But what's so interesting is throughout each of these conversations, there's similar threads that are beginning to percolate. And, you know, I think everybody covers their own domain within this world. Like, if you take life, it's just this giant pie, right? Everybody covers a piece of that pie, and a lot of the sections begin to overlap. And where there's overlap from different perspectives, you begin to see patterns. And I'll call them, it's about to get really hippy-dippy, but like universal truths, right? So, yeah, man, I think exactly what you said. You know,
you can talk to people who are successful in a traditional matter and people who aren't in a traditional way, because I mean I define success a lot differently than a lot of other people do. You know, my success is happiness. You know, and that's my big takeaway, or my big key for everybody is try things until you're happy. If you're not happy, find something that makes you happy. You know, and that's my definition of success. You know, I'm not the richest guy. I've spent more money than what I've had in plenty of points of times in my life, but I don't regret it. You know? And that's my definition of success. And I think to get to whatever your definition of success is, there, like you said, there are going to be common threads with everybody. You know, you have to have sacrifice. You have to not be afraid to take chances. You know, learn from your failures, but
different things, and find what your definition of success is.
And the last thing is, don't be afraid to enjoy your own successes. Don't minimize what you've done.
Yeah.
Don't minimize what you've done because you feel like it wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
Audience.
That one was directed at me specifically.
No, but it's good advice.
It is good advice. It's great advice. It's something. It's something that I'm learning, and it's good to have people to remind you.
It's hard.
Yeah, man. Well, appreciate you, man.
Yeah, of course, man.
Thanks for coming on to the show, and for everybody, thank you for listening of this episode of Oddly Successful. If you enjoyed the show, please consider leaving us a review, so that way more people who resonate with Spaldo's message here. Sorry, I call him Spaldo because like Spaulding. It's anyway.
You say weird things to people you've known for 12 years.
Yeah. But so many more people who are going to resonate with Spaldo's message here can hear it, and maybe that will help put them on the path that will lead them to where they're meant to find their success. So with that, please leave us a review. And as always, thank you for listening. And until next time, stay weird.